But the call has also raised alarm bells on both Democratic and Republican sides of the aisle. And for more on this, let's turn to Newsmax White House correspondent Emerald Robinson, who joins us now in Washington. Emerald, there was a talk of a lawsuit for the audio getting out in the first place. Also a talk about, from a lot of Democrats saying President Trump violated election law just by making this phone call. But talk to us about what you expect to happen next as a result of all this.
Well, what happens next is anybody's guess, in all honesty. Of course, there could be litigation over the release of the phone call. But look, the way that the phone call was reported and then how it was what it actually entailed once it was released in its entirety are two very different things. In fact, the president didn't just ask the Secretary of State, Brad Raffensperger, to quote unquote find 11,000 votes. The president was saying that there's a lot more votes in question, hundreds of thousands of votes. But at the very least, there's enough to make up that margin between he and Joe Biden. In fact, the president, one thing we did learn, very passionately believes that he won the state of Georgia, and not by just a few votes. Listen.
Election by hundreds of thousands of votes. There's no way I lost Georgia. There's no way. We won by hundreds of thousands of votes. I'm just going by small numbers. When you add them up, they're many times the 11,000. But I won that state by hundreds of thousands of votes.
Now, this call was actually regarding the legal proceedings. There's two court cases that the president has filed against the Secretary of State's office, and it was regarding a confidential settlement conference. The Trump team is asking that the Secretary of State's office allow them to view certain voter data that would either validate or invalidate their claims. In fact, Trump's lawyer is saying that it's about some 24,000 votes, and this could be cleared up very easily if they see the voter data. Listen.
That's what we would entreat and ask you to do, to sit down with us in a compromise and settlement, proceeding, and actually go through the registered voter IDs and the registrations. And if you can convince us that 24,149 is inaccurate, then fine. But we tend to believe that is, obviously more than 11,779. That's sufficient to change the result entirely in and of itself.
But Raffensperger's team continues to block the Trump team from seeing that data, and they say that it's just simply wrong. In fact, the Secretary of State went on Good Morning America today to say just that. Listen.
For the last 2 months, we've been fighting a rumor whack-a-mole, and it was pretty obvious very early on that we debunked every one of those theories that have been out there, but the President Trump continues to believe them.
The president's lawyer, Cleator Mitchell, said on that phone call as well that there's no way for them to confirm what the Secretary of State is telling them about the data unless they actually see it for themselves. John?
Let's go from here. Of course, just 2 days away from the certification process happening in Congress. I'm sure we'll talk much more about that. Emerald, we'll see you in the next hour. Also here with